All right, you may call your first witness. Oh, I do need the jury, don't I? The jury's already seen me make a few mistakes. You people out there have not, so I just want you to know I am human. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I trust that you followed my instructions and have not discussed the case among yourselves. Am I correct? Yes, sir. All right. Mr. Champion, you may now call your first witness. Or Mr. Hale. All right, thank you.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give involving this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Excuse me, Your Honor. That's what I can overrule.
All right, Will will be involved. I'll put the prosecution in charge of their witnesses and defense will be in charge of theirs.
Is our expert, which we talked about at the bench a few minutes ago. Everybody else is out.
All right, rule, of course, will be waived as to your any experts that you have. And, all right, Mr. Hale.
Would you state your name for me, please?
Lisa Chambers.
And Ms. Chambers, I'm going to ask you to speak up, speak in the microphone, okay?
Okay.
How are you related to Jessica Lane Chambers?
That's my baby girl.
And growing up, did Jessica always live around Cortland?
Always.
And did she play some sports when she was growing up?
Yes, she did.
What was she involved in?
Softball. She played softball a lot, and she was a cheerleader at the high school and junior high.
And did she graduate from South Panola High School located here in Batesville?
Yes.
And how old was Jessica at the time of her death?
19.
Chambers, I'm going to show you a photograph. Can you describe the person depicted in this photograph?
It's my baby. Jessica Chambers.
Is this Jessica Lane Chambers?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I would ask this photograph be marked and received and exhibited to this witness's testimony.
Any objection?
No, no.
I'll be so marked and admitted.
Chambers, I'm going to take you back to December the 6th of 2014. That is a day you will always remember, is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, I'm going to ask you to speak up for me. That morning, Jessica was gone from the house, is that right?
Right.
And where did you think Jessica was?
I thought she was at work.
And during the early hours of the afternoon, did Jessica return home?
Yes, she did.
And I know you lived in Cortland. Who did Jessica live with at that time?
She lived with me.
What did she do when she returned home that day, that afternoon?
She came in and left to go get me a pack of cigarettes, and then she came back and piled up on the chair and went to sleep.
Took a nap.
Took a nap.
How was Jessica awakened from her nap?
She either received a phone call or a text on her phone, either one, music rang. So I didn't know which one it was. She jumped up, went to the bathroom, and then when she come out of the bathroom, she had the phone up to her ear like she was talking on it.
Did you know who she was talking to?
I had no idea who she was talking to.
And after she got off the phone, what did she do?
She come in and said she was fixing to go get her something to eat and clean out her car, and she'd be back in a little bit to clean her room.
Is that the last time you saw your daughter?
Yes, it was.
Approximately what time was it that she left your house?
5:15. It was just getting dark, you know.
And at 6:48, did you talk to Jessica?
Yes.
And was that by telephone?
Yes.
And normally when you talk to Jessica on the phone when she's gone, tell me about the atmosphere surrounding her phone calls.
Usually you can't hear her because it's so loud with music or just all kind of racket you could hear with the windows down, because she was a cold person. She always had the windows down.
6:48 on December 6, 2014, what was the atmosphere of that phone call?
It was just kind of very quiet. You couldn't hear like the wind blowing. You couldn't hear any music. It was just her. Like you
And
could just hear her voice.
looking back on that, what did you take from that call?
That somebody was with her.
Is that the last time you spoke to your daughter?
Yes.
Later on that night, did Debbie Chambers come to your home?
Yes, she did.
And what were you advised at that time?
That my daughter had been set on fire.
Were you able to reach your daughter before she died at the Regional Medical Center?
Yes.
And were you able to say goodbye to Jessica Chambers?
Yes.
I asked you about Debbie Chambers. Who is Debbie Chambers?
That is Jessica's stepmother.
And her father is Ben Chambers, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And you used to be married to Ben Chambers, is that correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Lisa, do you know what type of car that Jessica drove?
Yes, she drove a black Kia.
And are you familiar with the keys that she had at that time to that black Kia?
Yes.
I'm going to show you an item of evidence. Can you identify this item for me?
Yes, those are Jessica's keys.
I believe they have a tag on here that has Ben's Auto and Diesel Repair.
Yes,
Is that her father's business?
that's her father. Yeah, it was, yes.
Your Honor, I would ask that this exhibit be marked for identification purposes only.
All right, any objections have been marked for identification?
None, Your Honor.
All right, it'd be so marked and is it for identification only? That'll be Exhibit 2 for identification. All right, thank you.
Your Honor, to the witness.
You may cross-examine.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Do I pronounce it Daughtery or Daughtry?
It's Chambers.
Chambers? Okay. Ms. Chambers, would you agree with me that there was a lot of law enforcement investigating your daughter's case?
Yes.
And when it first happened, I know it's been nearly 3 years ago. When it first happened, no one had been arrested at that time.
No, no one was arrested at the first.
Yes. And would you agree that it took a while for someone to get arrested for this charge?
Yes, I agree.
Yes. Did you keep constant communication with law enforcement?
Yes.
Yes. Was it pretty much every week since it happened?
No.
No. They kept in contact with you, though. You agree with that?
Yes.
It bothered you to some degree that there had not been any movement in the case. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And at some point, your communications with law enforcement increased.
Yes, ma'am.
It did? Okay. Now, I know you mentioned just a bit when talking to Mr. Hale about the fact that there was a call that you spoke to Miss Jessica on that day.
Yes.
You said that you could tell someone was with her. You didn't hear a voice or anything, did you?
No, ma'am.
And then just one final question. With regard to using Jessica's phone, would you say that sometimes you did use it?
Jessica's phone?
Yes, back
No.
then. Okay. Never had occasion to use it to play with games or something on it?
Not Jessica's phone, no.
No. Okay. I tend to witness.
Redirect.
No other questions, Your Honor.
What instructions would you give this witness?
Your Honor, I would ask you to be finally released to sit with the family in the audience.
Ms. Chambers, you've been finally released. You can leave the courthouse or you may stay in the courtroom, your choice. All right, thank you. You can remove your exhibit, please.
Yes.
And you may call your next witness.
Call Keisha Myers.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that this testimony you're about to give involving this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right.
Speaking of that microphone for me, Keisha, what is your name?
Lakeisha Meyer,
And Keisha, where do you live?
84C Azalea Road, Cortland, Mississippi.
And how long have you lived there?
I've lived there for about 6 years now.
Okay. And prior to that, being in Cortland, where did you live? You don't have to give me an address, but what city?
I've stayed in Tunica and Cortland, pretty much.
Okay. In excess of, or right around 3 years ago, did you have an occasion to meet a girl named Jessica Chambers?
Yes.
Tell the jury how you met her.
Actually, I met her walking down the road one day as she was walking, and I met her that way, right around the road from where I stayed.
And do you know where Jessica lived at the time of her death?
Yes.
Was that fairly close to where you live?
Yes.
Did y'all become friends?
Yes.
We'll show you what's been marked as exhibit number 1. Who is that?
Jessica Chambers.
Was she your friend?
Yes.
What would, at some point, when you and Jessica were friends, did you attend a trade school?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and where was that located?
Right there off of Highway 51, a Job Corps, Finch
That-
Henry Job Corps.
That's here in Batesville.
Yes, right here in Beasley.
And what is Job Corps?
Job Corps is a trade school, and yes, a trade school,
And what trade were you learning?
welding.
And while you were at Job Corps, did you have to live there?
Yes, I stayed on campus.
And did you?
Yes,
And did you have time on weekends or during the week when you could hang out with your friends.
Yes.
And did you have occasion to hang out with Jessica?
No, during the whole time I was there, I didn't really hang out with Jessica because Jessica, you know, she was getting her life together. She just got a job at Goodies, and, you know, we kind of lost connection when I was there going to school at the time. I didn't really see Jessica till towards the end of me being at school, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, I want to take you back to December the 5th on Friday night
Yes.
before Jessica died. Were y'all together that night?
Yes.
Okay. And on December the 6th, the day that Jessica was burned, did you have occasion to be with Jessica?
Yes.
And tell me how, or tell the jury how you and Jessica came to get together.
Jessica came and picked me up from school on a Wednesday. It was the 3rd, I want to say, the 3rd of December.
I'm going on the day that she died.
Okay, well, Saturday I was at my boyfriend's house, and she came and picked me up earlier that morning around 10. She came and picked me up, and she had Quentin Tellis with her.
Do you see Quentin Tellis in the courtroom today?
Yes,
Would you point him out, please, and tell me what he's wearing?
he's right there, and he's wearing a striped shirt and glasses.
By the record reflects she's identified the defendant.
Record will so indicate.
So when she came to get you around 10 o'clock, was Quentin in the car with her?
Yes,
And what was the purpose of her coming to pick you up?
really, it was you were just doing the normal that we usually do. Just took a ride around and just hanged out a little bit, and that's about much.
And did y'all do that? Did the three of y'all ride around?
Yes,
You're aware of where Jessica was burned, is that correct?
yes,
And when you were riding around that day, did y'all drive by there going out and then turn around and drive back coming in town?
yes,
And was it just the three of y'all?
yes.
And how long did y'all ride around together? Do you remember?
But I mean, it wasn't long. We weren't together long. It probably the longest we were together probably an hour or two. Probably not even that.
And at some point, did she take you home first, or did she take Quentin home first?
She took Quinn home first.
Okay. And did she let him out of the vehicle?
Yes.
Do you remember where he let out of the vehicle?
I don't really just remember, but I know it was on 51.
Was it near the store?
Yes.
And then after y'all left Quentin, or let Quentin out of the car, what did you and Jessica do?
She came and dropped me off. She told me she was going to come back and she'll, hit me up later on. But my phone happened to go off at noon, so I didn't talk to Jessica the rest of that day.
Okay. And why did your phone go off?
I ran out of minutes.
Were you aware that that had happened at the time, or was it later on when you found out?
It was later on that I found out.
After leaving Jessica roughly 11 to 12 o'clock, did you have occasion to ever talk to her again?
No, I didn't speak to her. I didn't hear anything from her for the rest of the day. I tried to reach out to her and never got any response.
Did y'all actually have plans to go out and do something that night that you learned about later?
Yes,
Okay. And tell the jury, what were you found about this after the fact, is that correct?
yes.
And what significance was Saturday in your life?
It was my birthday, actually.
And that was December the 6th, is that correct?
No, my birthday was the 7th, but that weekend we were, going to celebrate.
Okay. And what did you find out after Jessica had died that y'all were supposed to do on that Saturday night?
We were supposed to go to Memphis. I'm not sure where we were supposed to go, but I know they were going to take me to Memphis to go
And
celebrate.
What was the reason for you going to Memphis?
To celebrate my birthday.
Okay. I want to ask you how old you were. I want to ask you how old you were.
I would be 21, turning 20. I was 20, actually, just turned 20.
Did you ever see, or how did you learn about what had happened to Jessica?
Actually, I was at my boyfriend's house, and it was pretty late. It was about 2 o'clock, 2:30, when I really just heard about the news, just really going on. my boyfriend's cousin came in the house and was like, did you guys hear about the girl around the road? The girl that I used to hang out with all the time? She didn't know her name. And she said, she was burnt and she's in ICU right now. And that's as much as I heard about it until the next morning. And then I found out she was gone.
Did you know that night when at 2:30 in the morning, did you know who they were talking about?
No, at first I didn't. I didn't at first. But then when she said, the girl that I hang out with all the time, it kind of just Jessica, but it was hard to believe because I just seen her. So.
And the person that was in the car with you and Jessica from 10 to, I believe you said an hour or so, is Quentin Tellis.
Yes.
Okay. On Wednesday, did you have occasion to ride with Jessica and Quentin?
No. It
Or a
wasn't planned.
couple of days prior,
Yeah.
not necessarily Wednesday. And at some point, did you drop Quentin off, you and Jessica drop Quentin off at a location in Cortland called the Sandbox?
Yes.
All right, tell me a little bit about that.
We met him at the store. We picked him up, and he wasn't. Me and Jessica, we did our occasional thing, smoking, and he wasn't drinking or smoking or anything, and it wasn't really a long time period that we were together. I guess he just needed a ride over there, and we went and dropped him off, and they had a hug as he was getting out the car, and Jessica made it seem like she was scared or something. She made it seem like she was paranoid or anything, something was bothering her, and it just seemed like he didn't want to let her go. So that's as far as.
All right, let's back up just a
went.
minute. So y'all pick him up at M&M's at the store by his house, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you drove him to the Sandbox?
Yes.
Okay. Did Jessica get out of the car at the Sandbox?
Yes.
And did Quentin get out of the car at the Sandbox?
Yes.
Did you get out of the car at the Sandbox?
No.
Okay. And as Jessica got out, did Quentin approach her?
They were conversating as they were already talking before they got out the car, but they got out the car and they were still having their conversation. And they just he wanted a hug, they got a hug, exchanged a hug, and then he left and walked off from there.
But something about the hug,
It just wasn't sitting right, because the way Jessica acted, she acted like it was, something dangerous. Like she acted like she was paranoid or scared of something. I don't know what it could have been, but she made it seem like it was aggressive towards her. But
did she appear to be returning I guess for lack of a better word, returning the love?
she made it like short, made it like a friendly hug, but she made it seem more of like she was scared to do it. So she made it a quick hug, and then got back in the car, and he left.
And this occurred at the Sandbox.
Yes.
Okay. Tend to the witness, Your Honor.
Cross.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Keisha, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you have considered, or you did consider Jessica to be your best friend?
Yes.
Did. And back at the time you met Quentin, you met him in a store, is
Yeah.
that? And actually, Jessica introduced you to him.
Yes.
She introduced him as Quentin
Yeah, that's Quinn.
and never called him Eric in your presence.
Mm-mm.
And basically, she knew who he was.
Yeah. She made me seem like she knew who he was. I don't know him, so.
Right, okay. But she made it seem to you like she knew
Yeah.
who he was.
Yeah.
Yes. And on the day that, let's go to that Saturday, which would have been the day that she was killed. You said that the three of you rode around and hung out a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I believe you also mentioned that what you guys normally kind of did was ride around and maybe smoke weed or marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no?
Yes.
You also testified to the fact that on that day, Quentin wasn't smoking.
Yes.
Prior to this day, there were times when you and Jessica would ride around as well
Yes.
and smoke.
Yes.
Now, you have knowledge that Jessica actually was involved with selling drugs to some degree, marijuana.
Yes.
That was yes?
Yes.
And that would have been pretty often, let's say in the last 6 months prior to that.
Yes.
And closer we got to the December time frame, would you say that she was basically serving people every other day?
Yes.
I know you talked also about you spoke about when you rode around, it may have been in the area where she was killed.
Yes.
Did you even know where that area was
No.
prior to that date?
No.
And what happened was that you weren't really sure where that area was.
Yes.
Okay. Or if you even went in that area that day.
Yes.
And let me make sure I'm understanding. So you weren't sure if you guys drove in that area or not on that day.
Yes.
But we do know for a fact that the three of you were together that morning,
Yes.
but that Jessica dropped Quentin off.
Yes.
That would have been the last time you saw him, correct?
Yes.
Course indulgence. Just a moment. No, you spoke about a few days before that Saturday.
Yes.
On the day that the three of you were together, Quentin was already in the car.
Yes.
And so on that day, there was no animosity or anything of that nature between Jessica and Quentin.
No.
You did not witness that.
No.
I tend to witness your honor.
Redirect.
I believe when you were interviewed earlier, you were interviewed numerous times in this case, is that correct?
Yes.
And at one time, did you indicate that Jessica was getting some of the weed from Quentin?
Never.
Okay, who was she getting her weed from, do you know?
No, I'm not sure where she got it from.
Okay. But you also would smoke weed with her, is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe on the morning that y'all rode around, was Quentin smoking weed on that Saturday morning that Jessica died?
No.
Okay. Just you and Jessica?
Yes.
Okay. And did she ever, you were asked about whether she ever called him Eric, did you ever, let me just move on from that. Did you ever hear her call him any other names?
No.
Okay. And you were introduced to him as
Quentin.
Quentin. Did Jessica talk to you any more after she dropped you back off that morning at your boyfriend's house?
No, she didn't.
And did you attempt to call her prior to your minutes expiring?
Yes.
This is beyond the scope of cross.
I'm through. I'm through. Nothing further. She may be,
What instructions would you give this?
she may be finally excused.
Ma'am, you may be fine excused as you can leave the courtroom or you may return to the courtroom, your choice.
Okay.
You may call your next witness.
Glenn Williams.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, Ms. Hill. Good afternoon. Would you state your name for me?
Yes. Glenn Williams,
And Mr. Williams, what city do you currently reside in?
Marks, Mississippi.
You know why you're here, correct?
Correct.
On December 6, 2014, you recall what day of the week that was?
Saturday.
And back in those days, what was your Saturday routine?
I had a small trucking company at the time, so Saturday was payday for the couple of guys that were working for me.
Mr. Williams, I'm going to ask you to kind of step up and speak to that mic because everybody's got to be able to hear you, okay?
Okay.
And Saturday being payday, where did you go to pay your drivers?
Lambert, Mississippi.
And at the time, where were you living?
Pontotoc.
And is Cortland between Lambert and Pontotoc?
Yes.
Now, did you have somebody with you on that particular day?
Yes.
Who was that?
Troy Rudd.
And when you left Lambert, where was your destination with Troy Rudd? Where were you headed?
Cortland.
What part of Cortland?
Heron Sub.
And as you were driving, when you went to Heron Sub, did you take the main roads?
No, we came around Benson Road.
Why'd you take the back roads?
Well, first of all, it's easier away from Lambert to Cortland. Second, we was drinking.
Y'all were drinking beer, right?
Yes,
Y'all going back roads to Cortland.
correct.
And as you entered, you mentioned Benson Road. Benson Road, you turn on the Heron Road off of Benson, headed to Cortland, right?
Correct.
And as you were headed down Heron Road, tell the jury what you saw.
I would say maybe 2 hills before we encountered the car on fire. It was fire was up in the trees. I mean, like way up there. You could see it over the top of the hill.
You saw fire.
Yeah,
As you approached the fire, could you tell what was on fire?
it was a car.
Did you see any people around?
No.
As you drove by the fire, who's driving? You or Troy?
Me,
What were you in?
my 2014 pickup.
Did you ever stop?
Yes,
Did you ever get out of the car?
we got out on the side of the road, but we didn't go up there because
I don't know. I'm gonna back up. When you
Okay.
passed the burning car,
okay.
did you get out of the car next to the burning car?
No.
Did you stop or drive by the car?
We stopped like, well, it was kind of in the middle of the road because the fire was on the passenger side of the truck. So you had to get over to get out. So both people could get out because the fire was like in the middle of the road.
Okay. Where did you ultimately stop and get out of the car?
I would say somewhere probably past the car a little bit, maybe,
Okay.
but not down the hill.
And you never saw anybody?
No.
What was your initial thoughts when you saw the car burning?
I said somebody started the car on fire for insurance money.
Why would you think insurance at that time of year?
Christmas time.
Now, you were headed to meet somebody, is that correct?
Correct.
And where was that person waiting on you?
In Heron Sub.
Heron Subdivision's right past this.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to reading.
Where is Heron Sub in regards to this crime scene?
Down the hill, past the second turn on the right.
And when you got to Heron Sub, where did you go?
I had a camper in the back.
Okay. And you had
And
somebody
that's-
waiting on you at the camper?
Yeah.
Now, after you and Troy noticed the fire, did you report it?
Yes.
Who called it in?
He called it in. Well, he called, I think it was Cortland Fire Department, if I'm not mistaken.
And while you were in Heron Sub, did you see any firemen or ambulances?
Yes, I didn't see him, I heard him go by.
And do me a favor, describe the fire when you passed by the car.
It was a fire, I mean, it was burning, I mean, the car was fully in, what you call consumed, fully occupied with fire. It was burning. The trees there probably 30, 35 feet tall, and it was way up in top of it all.
Was inside the car burning?
Yes.
All right, 10 of the witnesses.
Good afternoon, Ms. Williams.
Good evening.
You were with LaTroy Rudd on December 6th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the two of you were coming from where?
From Lambert, Mississippi.
Lambert. Where is Lambert, Mississippi?
Well, easy way I could describe it is where we at base. We can go down 6 to the 4-way stop sign, turn left, and go 2 miles.
So it would be north of
It would
Batesville?
be
South of Batesville?
South. It would be south, southwest from up here.
Now, before I proceed, did you know Jessica Chambers?
No,
What about Quentin Tellis?
no.
So you never, you didn't know either one of those?
No.
Okay. Now, how did you actually come to be in this area?
I'm from Lambert, Vance, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. Now, when you were answering questions by the prosecutor, you were talking about your normal routine.
Yes.
Tell me about that routine.
Like I said, at the time I had 1, 2, 3, I had about 4 trucks. So had people driving for me, and depends on whether they got a load for Saturday mornings or not. They would get paid on either Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
And so them being like me, I know they wanted their money Saturday.
Okay.
So I went and took it to them.
So did that routine bring you by the place where you saw the fire on a regular basis?
You mean like occasionally?
Yes.
Yeah, I still see some of the stuff that's there on the side of the road.
So you're in that area frequently, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
My trucks are parked in Cortland. No.
now, when you were answering questions from the prosecution, you indicated that you saw fire way up in the trees.
Correct.
And you indicated that this was prior to you actually seeing the vehicle burning.
Correct.
Okay. Did you call anyone at that point?
No, because you couldn't tell what was on fire. You had to come up a hill, down a hill, and then back up the next hill to get to the car.
Okay. So then you came up a hill, down a hill, and you came up near where the car was.
Yes.
And at that point, you were on the road directly next to the car. Is that correct?
No, you would be in at that time you're going probably, you're going east, so you would, instead of being in the right lane, you would be in the left-hand lane, like you're passing the car.
Now describe for the jury, this is a 2-lane road we're talking about, right? It's
Correct.
not 4 lanes?
No.
Okay. So when you made it to the area where the car was burning, what did you do?
We looked at first, and I looked back. I remember looking back to see, did we meet anybody like going down the road? And so we didn't. I mean, there was nobody there to see.
Okay.
So we got pulled up beyond the probably the front tire of the car, because like I said, the fire. I mean, it was, the trees was popping, and if you're familiar with that area, it's on a hill, and I didn't want the tree that was burning to fall on my pickup. So we pulled past, started down the hill.
Okay.
And when we got out of the car, that's when Troy called the Cortland Fire Department.
And that would be Mr. Rudd, correct?
Yes.
He called Cortland Fire Department. Now, you indicated that you were looking back.
Yes.
Why were you doing that?
Because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anyone that probably needed help. You know, because at that time you didn't see anybody, you couldn't even see nothing in the car, like nothing. You know, it was fully like burning, like the seat was on fire.
So when you were in the area, you made a conscious effort to look around
Yes.
to see if anyone was there.
Yes.
And you didn't see anyone.
No.
And you didn't see Jessica Chambers, is that
No.
correct? Okay. So you pulled down past where the car fire was burning, and at some point you and Mr. Rudd stopped your vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. Did both of you get out?
Yes.
Okay. Now, was the fire at that point, was it,
It was still popping.
tell me about the fire in relation to the vehicle.
Okay.
Was the entire car burning?
Yes.
So it was
It was
fully engulfed.
engulfed, and it was, I mean, the whole while we were there, it was burning up in the trees.
Okay.
The whole time.
I'm sorry. And was it coming out, was the fire coming out on the street?
No, the heat was.
The heat was.
The
So
heat
you
was-
could feel the heat.
Yes, that's why I pulled down beyond the car, because at that time, well, we was, like I said, we was riding, drinking, so we had the windows down. And so when you pull by the car, you can feel the heat coming through the windows. And so you had to pull by the actual car burning to be able to get out of the truck.
Certainly. How long did you and Mr. Rudd stay at that scene?
I can't say I honestly remember, but I would say maybe about 2 minutes.
About 2 minutes. Tell me, while you and Mr. Rudd were at the scene, did you encounter any first responders?
No, not that I remember.
When I say first responders, I mean firemen, ambulance personnel.
No, because I heard when I got up on the hill where Troy lives, I heard the trucks go by. I heard I can't say it was the ambulance or police or Cortland Fire Department. I'm just assuming it was them since the first one that was called. But I just heard the sirens go by. I didn't.
Was it you or Mr. Rudd who called to report the fire?
It was not. It was not me.
So Mr. Rudd called to report the fire?
Yes. Because I didn't even know the number to.
Do you know who he called?
I'm assuming it was. I don't know for a fact that it was Cortland Fire Department. I don't know. You know, but I only know what was said. And he said he called Cortland Fire Department. So I can't say for 100% certainty that he called Cortland Fire Department.
So after about 2 minutes, you and Mr. Rudd got back into your vehicle and left the scene?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did you give a statement to law enforcement?
I did.
You did. Do you recall who you spoke with?
I recall several conversations. I think the first conversation I want to say was at the sheriff's department, if I'm not mistaken.
And how long did this conversation take place after the fire that you witnessed?
Next day, maybe day after.
Okay. So did someone contact you, or did you just
Yes.
go into the?
I think someone contacted me. Yeah.
And when that person contacted you, you went to the sheriff's office to give a statement?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that there were multiple statements.
Yes. Multiple contacts because
Okay.
they kept wanting to call tonight and ask, did we see anybody walking down the road? I was like, no, I didn't. I made a conscious effort to look. I didn't see anybody. I did not see anyone.
Okay.
I can't see was not there.
And Mr. Williams, do you recall who at the sheriff's department you actually spoke to the day after this incident?
No.
Okay.
Not real offhand.
Do you recall anyone that you spoke with from law enforcement, period, at any point?
I recall speaking to, what is the other police that were here? Was the FBI?
You spoke with the FBI?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, whatever. I guess that was assuming, but yeah.
Mr. Williams, did you ever submit to any type of DNA testing?
No.
And now, Mr. Williams, you indicated that when you first saw the fire, you thought that it was someone maybe burning the car for insurance.
Yes.
Have you known that to happen before?
I have.
Okay. And
Sure, everybody.
ask court's indulgence.
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant Winshaw.
Redirect.
Mr. Peterson asked you how long you stayed at the scene, or where you parked down from the scene. You had somebody waiting on you at the camper, right?
Yes.
Lady friend?
Correct.
And after the authorities were called, what were you drinking?
Probably beer and liquor, but I know beer. I mean, after I got back to the camper.
Did you have somebody else on your mind up at Harrod Sub?
I did.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
What instructions did you give this witness?
They have to be finally released.
All right, so you may be fined or released, or you can stay in the courtroom, your choice.
Okay.
All right. You may call your next witness.
Go ahead.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give regarding this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I need you to speak up for me. Can you state your name for the record?
Cole Haley.
Mr. Haley, on December the 6th of 2014, were you a fireman in Panola County?
Yes, sir, I was.
What department were you with?
Cortland Fire Department, Station 8.
And at that time, were you the chief of Cortland Fire Department?
Yes, I was.
Now, you obviously know why we're here.
Yes,
And on
sir.
December 6th of 2014, prior to going to Heron Road, were you out on another fire call?
Yes, sir.
What type of call was that?
It was smoke in the house call. We just went to the call, it was a basic call. gets cold outside, everybody starts turning their heater on, and a lot of times it'll set up a little bit and just smoke the house, and we just put the exhaust fan up and cleared the house out, and we're back at the station.
All right. When you arrived back at the station, who all was at the station that you remember?
It was me, Jody Mars, and Seth Cook.
And you're all cleaning up from that call?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you receive another call to the area of Heron Road?
Yes, sir. We received a call, and inside our fire department, it's a metal building, and our radios that don't pick up. A lot of times they'll kind of break in and out, the traffic will. So I told them to go ahead and get ready, and I stepped outside to make sure I got the whole traffic from the dispatch, and it was for a car fire on Heron Road.
So at 8:12 p.m. you responded to a car fire.
Yes, sir. I got back in the station, and like I said, they were dressed, and I told them to go ahead and brush truck 84, and I was just seconds behind them in engine 81.
Right. And what is engine 81?
Engine 81 is a pumper. It's our big truck. Brush truck 84 is a brush truck. It's just a normal truck with a water tank in the bed.
How far is the scene on Heron Road from where Cortland Fire Department is located?
I would say 1.5 miles.
Now, who was the first, which vehicle got there first?
Brush truck 84 arrived on scene first.
And that had the other two guys?
Yes, sir. That had Seth Cook and Jody Morris.
And did you come up right alongside them?
They had, from their story, they had actually pulled in the drive and seen Jessica walking up, and it kind of shocked them, and they backed up to.
Let's stop. I'm not going to ask you their story. I just want to know what you saw, okay?
All right.
When you arrived, did you pull around them?
When I arrived, I pulled around them and pulled on up to where the car was on fire. And
what did you see?
I saw Jessica standing in the road, and then of course I seen the car on fire out of the corner of my eye, and I immediately stepped out of the truck and raised the compartment, got a blanket out, and went to Jessica's aid.
Let me ask you about it. Did you know Jessica Chambers?
I knew her. We weren't, friends or anything, but I knew her.
When you first arrived on the scene, did you recognize this person?
No, sir, I did not.
What was this person wearing?
When I seen her, she had nothing on but her panties.
And what did you tell me you did? You got a blanket?
I got out and I got a blanket, and she had her arms out and was coming towards me saying, "Help me, help me, help me."
Nicole, I want you to describe for this jury what did she look like? What was the condition of Jessica Chambers?
Her hair was fried out like she had stuck it in a light socket. And she had black all over her face. Her body was severely burned, and just all the way down her body was very badly burned. And like I said, I wrapped the blanket around her to conceal her. And and I always knew that learned that burn victims would be cold, and so that's why I placed a blanket around her, and we proceeded to walk up the road. I was trying to get her to the front of the engine 81 to where the headlights were, where it'd be more light, or could access her a little more, see a little better. we made it to the back of Engine 81, and she couldn't go anymore. And I proceeded to lay her down on the ground. She reached out for my hand. I held on to her hand, and I talked to her, and I asked her name. And she said, what come out, like I said, her mouth, inside her mouth was just charred black, and could not understand her very well at all.
Were you able to get a name?
When I asked her name, she said Jessica Chambers, and like I said, she was not recognizable to me. I know what Jessica Chambers looked like. Did not look like Jessica Chambers at the time. And as I looked at her, and I thought about the compact car. I knew that she drove a smaller car like that. And I said, you know, knowing this is Cortland, I said, this is Jessica Chambers, not Chambers.
Is that the point you recognized who you were talking to?
Yes, sir.
Now, describe her voice for the jury. How was it coming out when you were talking to her?
It was very garbled and just dry. I mean, you know, I was face to face with her, and she, like I said, you could barely understand her, and she kept asking for water, and I knew in my mind she didn't need water. I knew that was not the best, you know, not to give her water, and I just wanted to double check myself. And the only time I left her side was I went up to the front of the Engine 81 and asked Jody just to get a second opinion. I said, she can't have water, right? And he said, that's right. And I come back, held her hand beside her, and asked her what happened. And she told me, she said, I was set on fire.
Again, was her voice clear?
It was not clear. Like I said, you know, some words you were able to tell what they were plainly, but it was not clear, if that makes sense.
Did you ask her who did this to her?
I asked her, I said, who did this to you? She tried to say a name. I could not understand the name.
Did it sound like anything to you?
I could not make out anything to what she said. The only time I heard a name was after Daniel Cole got on scene, MedStat got there, and I believe a deputy was there, and they had turned her head away from me, and they had started packing her up, and they kept questioning her, you know, who did this, who did this, who did this, and then I heard them say Eric. Like I said, I never heard her say a name, and you know, and I kept going over in my mind, why didn't I ask her more questions? And the reason I didn't ask her any more questions than what I did, because I knew it was hard for her to talk. It was, you know, it was hard for her to speak, and she was fading in and out on me.
Were you trying to keep her alert?
She was closing her eyes and her head was rolling back, and I would rub her chest bone and say her name, Jessica, sweetheart.
Were you able to keep her alert until the other authorities arrived?
Yes, sir. I kept her alert and, told her, help's coming.
And did MedStat show up?
They got there pretty quick.
You turned her over to the paramedics.
When MedStat got there, I turned it over to the paramedics. Like I said, and Daniel Cole, he arrived before MedStat, and I knew he had a background in this type of field, in the paramedic field and everything. And so when he got there, I let him kind of get in there and work a little bit.
Now, this jury's not from Panola County, so tell Daniel Cole, what is he in Panola County?
He is CD1. He's Civil Defense 1. He's over Panola County Emergency Operations.
Because they're going to hear from him soon. I just wanted them to know who that name is. When you mentioned Jody and Seth, who were they with?
They're with Cortland Fire Department.
Now, the last thing, once they arrived and took over for Jessica, did you go assess the actual fire?
By that time, to back up a little bit, when she said I was set on fire, I hauled it up there to Seth, which was fighting fire. Jody was kind of in between me and Seth the whole time, helping us both out until some more help got there. And I hollered up there to him, and I told him, I said, y'all, I said, kind of just drown this fire out. I said, to preserve any evidence that might be left.
Tell us what you noticed. Did you look at the car when it was burning, when you first got there?
When I got there and I stepped out of the truck, I looked at the car. I didn't take the time to examine it or anything like that, because my main concern was getting to Jessica. But the car was on fire on the inside, and you can tell that I worked many car fires before, and when a car is set on fire on the inside, it's contained to the inside of the cabin of the car. A car that's electrical problems or something like that, you're going to have grass fire, and you're going to have fire around the car, not just inside the car.
Cole, when you say contained to the inside, what was the condition of the grass around the car? And explain to the jury what you mean by drowning out the fire.
The fire was inside the car, like along the edges of the car. It was barely even black. I mean, like I said, most time on a car fire, you're gonna have it's gonna catch the grass on fire, and you're gonna have a grass fire around the car. There was no grass fire around the car. And what was
So did you wet the area of the car, or the area surrounding the car?
And drowned out the car instead of what we call a power stream or a power cone, which is full force firefighting. Reduced the nozzle down to more of a flooding stage where it won't blow, it wouldn't blow stuff out of the car. We could drown it, and the water would just kind of settle everything down in the car instead of blowing it out.
Cole, last question. In all your years of being a firefighter, have you ever seen anything like this?
No, sir, and I hope I never see anything like it again.
Your Honor, I tender the witness.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Mr. Haley.
Good afternoon.
I have a few questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you mentioned that you were, this was the second call that you went to that day.
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe there's a terminology, you were toned out from the fire department. Yes?
Yes.
And that time would have been just a little bit after 8 o'clock, about 8:12. You agree with that?
I was towing for the vehicle fire. Yes, ma'am.
And so you agree that just very shortly after you were on the scene, let's say the next day, December 7th, you completed a statement about what happened.
I did.
You did. And may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I hand this to him.
You may.
Do you recognize?
So we all did that. They
Would you-
wanted,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
they wanted it done as fast as possible and everything was fresh on our mind.
Absolutely. So you agree that it would have been fresh on your mind back then?
It was fresh in my mind, but what I'm trying to get to is when I did this statement, I was also in a daze. I was in a daze for weeks. I mean, you know, it affected me.
But you still agree, though, that as far as the basic information, it was fresh on your mind at that time?
I mean,
Yes, correct?
everything in here is true.
Your Honor, can I have this marked as Defense Exhibit 1?
Be marked it and pass it to the court reporter, please, sir.
If you would, please, I'm going to try to guide you as best I can. Go down about 13 lines. You see where it says I, 801?
Yes.
Okay. 801 is like your identification number as a firefighter?
That's my call number.
Your call number, yes. If you would, please start reading at that point.
I, 801, started tending to the young female patient. I placed a blanket over her body to help in keeping her warm and to give her some concealment. I held the patient's hand and kept her talking until med-stat made scene. I asked the patient her name and she replied, Jessica Chambers. I asked what happened and she said somebody set her on fire. And when I asked who set her on fire, she would say what sounded to be Eric.
Okay, now, that's good, thank you. And so what you basically said there was, when asked to set her on fire, she would say what sounded to be Eric.
Yes, ma'am. Which that's goes back to what I was saying. I was in a daze. I mean,
Did you spell out Eric in the report there?
I did.
You did? How did you spell it?
ERIC.
Yes. And do you recall that you just testified moments ago that you heard her say that she was set on fire? You remember just saying that? While you've been here today, you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay. And if you would go back to your statement, you said that also. Back
ma'am.
then, December 7th, correct?
That's right. Said somebody set her on fire.
Yes. And then you also said you used the name Eric because that's what you heard. Isn't that correct?
That's what I heard.
That's what you heard, fresh on your memory, the very next day after everything happened on Saturday, correct?
Yes.
So when you said you couldn't make out anything that she said, that would be incorrect.
No.
Court's indulgence.
When you know,
Court's indulgence, just a moment.
You may answer you have something you want to say, sir?
you saying that I don't know if I understood you correctly.
Okay. My question, I just repeated what you stated, Mr. Haley. You said earlier, couldn't make out anything she said.
That's why I couldn't. I could barely make out what she said. I mean, you know.
You see where you said that you kept her talking.
I kept her alert, and it kept her saying, you know, she was saying, I'm going to die, and I would say, no, you're not, you know, just hang on. And like I said, but when she said that, it's not, I'm not saying it was plain.
I understand.
It was garbled, but I could.
But Eric was playing, correct?
I didn't personally hear her say Eric. That's what I was getting to, as in, you know, when I wrote the report, I wrote it, and, you know, when I heard Eric was when CD1 and the deputies and everything were questioning her, and at that time I was at her feet, and they said Eric.
You heard her say Eric in their presence. Is that what you're saying?
I heard them come up and say Eric. I didn't personally hear her say Eric.
Course indulgence, just for a moment, Your Honor. I turn to the witness, Your Honor.
We can direct.
You heard Daniel Cole say Eric?
Yes,
And is that where you got Eric from in your report?
yes.
Now, one thing I want to ask you, you mentioned the days after and since, how this has affected you. Please tell the jury how this scene has affected you.
It's affected me. to know there's people out there that cruel. I was scared to leave my house. And it's still hard for me to leave my house because I'm scared of something happening to my house or my property, or that is people out there that can do such a thing.
Cole, let me ask you one final question. As of today, are you currently on the Cortland Fire Department?
Sir, I'm not.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. I would ask that he be finally excused.
All right. You may be fine, excused, you can leave, or you can remain in the courtroom, your choice, sir.
Do you know who this?
Let me call you next witness.
Saw Jody Morris.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give involving your case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
What is your name?
Jody Morris,
And Jody, where are you employed?
Darby Truck.
You're over the road truck driver?
Yes, sir.
And do you have a part-time, or do you do a volunteer firefighting as a part-time or volunteer? Or as a volunteer?
I did. I just recently resigned.
Were you a volunteer firefighter for Cortland on December the 6th of 2014?
Yes, sir, I was.
Do you recall getting called out or toned out around 8, a little bit after 8 on that evening?
Yes, sir.
Where were you?
I was inside the firehouse
And why were you there?
because we just got back from a possible structure fire.
And did y'all actually work that possible structure fire?
Yes, we did.
And how long had you been back in Cortland when you got the tone about the car fire?
Approximately 20 to 30 minutes.
And who was at the firehouse with you?
Myself, my fire chief, Cole Haley, and firefighter Cook.
And where were you advised to go as the location of the car fire?
We was advised to go down Herring Road to the tree farm.
Did you know where that was?
I didn't at the time.
What did you do after the tones came?
Well, when the tone come through, it was for a car on fire in the field. At that time, well, it had been raining. It was December. It's hard to drag 600-foot hose across the field, fighting with your engine. So we decided to take the brush truck. So we were responding our brush truck because it's 4-wheel drive, be easy to, fight the fire if it was out in the middle of a field. So myself and firefighter Cook responded to brush truck, and our fire chief responded to our engine right behind us.
So where did you go when you left Cortland?
We took a left, went toward Benson Road on Herring.
Okay. And what did you find when you got to the fire?
When we got to the fire, we seen a passenger-sized car with heavy flames coming out of the passenger area.
Okay. Describe the fire for the jury, please, where it was contained and what it actually looked like.
The fire was coming out of the passenger area, which I mean the front seat and the back seat. It was pretty much contained inside there. It wasn't in the engine compartment or the trunk compartment.
And where did you actually pull the truck?
I pulled the truck straight up from the gate.
Describe for the jury, please, the area. As I understand, you're on Herring Road and you turn up a little incline to where a gate's located. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And as you're parked at the gate, where left or right was the vehicle?
The car was to our left.
And describe the location of the car in relation to where you parked your brush truck.
The car was, we pulled up, here's the gate. We pulled straight up to the gate, and the car was straight across from us,
Approximately how far?
probably less than 20 feet.
And what'd y'all do at this point?
I was given scene summary. I took command since I was a captain at the firehouse. I took command, scene command of it. Was given a description, a summary of the car, what we had to dispatch on the radio. And that's when firefighter Cook got my attention and said he'd seen an object in the woods.
Okay. And did you look to see what object he was talking about?
I did.
What did you see?
I seen a figure, looked like somebody coming out of the woods. The only light we had was the glow of the fire, and the lights on our brush truck. So, it was hard to see what was coming out.
What did it appear to you to be?
Appeared to be a zombie coming out. I know that's a little harsh, but that's what it looked like.
Why do you say that?
Because her hair was singed back and the way she was walking.
You could see it was a person.
Yes, at that time, yes.
What'd y'all do next?
We backed the truck up down the road about 20 feet. I wanted to get some headlights. As scene command, my priority as scene commander is the protection of my firemen. We backed up so I can get a second scene summary of what I had, and I wanted to get some headlights on the patient that's walking toward us.
Did it kind of make y'all nervous?
It did.
Okay. And once you backed the truck, so I assume you backed it out of the.
All right, rephrase your question, Mr. Champion, please.
How did you move the truck?
We backed out and went back toward Cortland.
Okay. Which way were the head? All right, back toward Cortland would be which direction?
Be back east,
Which way were your headlights facing?
west.
Okay. And how far from the car did you see this zombie-like figure?
About 30 feet.
And describe where you saw this person coming from in relation to the road.
She was coming out of the edge of the woods, walking toward us.
Okay. And is this the point where you backed your truck up?
Yes, sir.
And once you pointed the headlights back west, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What did you see?
I seen a young female with severe burns on her body.
And what was she wearing?
She was wearing nothing but her panties.
What did you do?
I immediately called for a deputy because at that time I didn't know what we drove up on.
Did you, was Cole there by then?
Cole was, by that time, Cole was coming around the corner in the fire engine, and we both approached the scene again together with both trucks, shining our headlights on her.
Was she still coming towards you?
Yes, sir.
Did you know who it was at the time?
No, sir.
And describe for the jury what, now you're getting a closer look at her, what she actually looked like.
I really didn't get a closer look at her until after I got my truck. My truck parked. Myself and firefighter Cook jumped out, and we got our booster reel out, got the pump going, got the water going. I told firefighter Cook just to contain the fire, and then that's when I went and assisted my fire chief with the patient.
What was Cole doing with her at this point?
He'd already had her laid on the ground, and I had her trying to comfort her.
All right, how did y'all have the trucks parked?
The engine was parallel with the car on the side of the road, and then my brush truck was right behind the car. And instead of pulling it into the drive this time, I backed it up to keep headlights out on the road.
All right, were y'all's vehicles parked basically side by side, the brush truck and the engine that
It made a square, and
What?
I said it kind of made a little square right there.
and it would have been a little bit north of where the car was?
It was right beside the car almost.
All right, did Cole begin trying to help this person?
He did.
Okay, and what did you and firefighter Cook do?
Firefighter Cook and myself, like I said, we exited our vehicle after we approached the scene back. We pulled our booster reel out, tried to contain the fire, and firefighter Cook was a rookie then, so I told him, I said, just fog the fire, keep it contained, don't let it spread to the tree farm, until other firefighters get there, certified firefighters.
Did y'all call for help?
I did.
Okay, who did you call for?
I called for Polk Fire Department
I believe you testified a minute ago, you also called for the sheriff's department.
and the sheriff's department, yes, sir.
Okay, why did you do that?
Because I didn't know what I had at the time. I didn't know if I'd come up on a dispute or what.
And you testified a moment ago that once firefighter Cook was working on the car to extinguish it, that you actually went back with coal, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, tell us what happened when you got back there.
Well, when I got back to the back of the fire engine, that's where where Cole and the patient was. I got down on my knees and everything, and just in my experience, you're supposed to talk to the patient and examine her at the same, examine the patient at the same time.
How long have you been a firefighter at this point?
I've been going about 12 years now, since I was 13, 14 years old. I was a junior
So
firefighter.
back in 2014, you'd have been, what, 8 or 9 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so you get down with Cole, and is Cole still with this person?
Yes, sir.
Did you know who it was at this point?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you eventually learn who it was?
Yes, sir.
And when did you eventually learn who it was?
When I started questioning her.
Okay. And what did you say to her?
Well, my first question I asked her, I said, what's your name? And she told me, my name's Jessica Chambers.
Okay. And then?
And then my second question was, I said, was anybody else in the vehicle with you? And she said no. And then I said, well, what happened? I said, Jessica, what happened to you? Because at that time I recognized who she was. While I was questioning her, I was steadily looking at her body, examining the extent of her injuries. And she told me, she said, Eric set me on fire.
And tell the jury what were the extent of her injuries.
Her lips were charred. Her tongue was charred. I mean, you can also tell it was third degree burns in her face. Her nasal, sinus cavities were even hanging out of her nose.
That's what I'm getting at. So when you observed her, tell the jury about her nose.
She was having problems breathing. That was because of it. It was all charred, black, all in her nose, like she just inhaled all the fire in her face.
What about her lips?
Her lips were black. It's like it was just dried up.
Were the two of you talking like you and I are talking right now?
No.
And what do you mean by that?
She was having problems breathing until I got back to the back behind the fire truck. She was having problems breathing. Her voice was deeper than mine is. But I can make out what she was saying.
And what did you do after you talked with her?
I immediately jumped up. I told Cole, like I said, she's finna go in the shock. If she ain't already easing in the shock, I said, keep her awake, talk to her. I went on and immediately called for MedStat. Told them that I had a young female with second, third degree burns on her body, 90% of her body, and to get MedStat en route ASAP. And I also told dispatch again, I said, get me deputies. I didn't get on the radio and tell them exactly what I had because I just didn't want everybody listening, the extent of the call. So I called them on the cell phone and I told dispatch exactly what I had. I said that a young female has been set on fire, to notify our EMA director, which the reason why I done that, because he lived in the city of Cortland. I knew he'd probably be here, get there pretty quick to us.
Who are you talking about?
Daniel Cole.
Did you actually go back with Jessica, or were other people arriving at this point?
There was other people starting to arrive at this point.
Did you do anything else with Jessica from this point forward?
No.
Did you assist with putting the fire out?
I did.
Did you assist? I assume at some point she was transported from there to another location. Is that
She
correct?
was.
And where was she taken?
She was taken right below our firehouse, to the church right below our firehouse,
And what was the purpose of that?
to be airlifted to the med.
What was the scene like once everybody began to arrive?
It was, I ain't gonna say it was like a normal, fire scene, but everybody knew their duties, what they had to do.
What about the Pope folks when they began to arrive?
When Pope finally got there, they assisted. The reason I called for Pope is for their medical supplies on their rescue because our engine didn't have the capability of taking care of the amount of injuries she had. And when they got there, they assisted with which we call packaging the patient and helping MedStack get the patient loaded.
You ever seen anything like this before, Jody?
I've seen people burn before, but not intentionally.
Tender the witness, Your Honor.
You may cross.
Good afternoon, Mr. Morris.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
All right.
Just a few questions for you. I know you were what would be considered first responder there. Yes. And basically, I believe your testimony was that the fire was contained inside the car.
Yes, ma'am.
So at that point, or at no point to which you recall, Miss Jessica was not in the car at any time. Only time you saw her was pretty much walking and coming towards you.
Yes, ma'am.
As a firefighter, you wrote a statement out as to what happened.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was pretty recently after it happened, correct?
The night of, yes, ma'am.
The night of. And may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's your statement, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if, Your Honor, what I'd like to do this time is to have it marked and admitted into evidence.
All right. Any objection?
I would like to found. Your Honor, my back's killing me. Can I sit?
Sir?
My back's killing me. Can I sit here just for a second and talk?
I'm sorry, you may sit. Yes, sir.
All right. Normally it's a statement of a witness being cross-examined is not admissible unless there's some kind of fact. I mean, if it's a prior inconsistent statement for impeachment, I certainly understand it, but he hasn't been impeached yet with his statement, so therefore I would object to the admissibility of the statement at this point.
Objection noted, to be overruled. You may mark the exhibit.
Thank you. If you will, I want to direct your attention to maybe about halfway down. You might can count maybe a little bit easier, maybe about 16 lines down.
Okay.
Okay. You see where it says myself and fire chief?
Yes.
Okay. If you will, please just read that.
Myself and fire chief was working on the young lady, trying to comfort her until MedStack got there.
Okay, keep reading.
I kept asking the young lady her name and what happened.
Okay, and one more sentence for me.
And that's when she told me that Eric had set her on fire.
Actually, does it say, and that is when she told us that Eric set her on fire?
Yes.
Okay. And so that us would include, as best you can recall, Jody Mars. Yes?
Yes.
back then, this was fresh on your mind. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And I think you went as far as to when the person's name as Eric, you spelled it out and put it in quotes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
How did you spell it?
E-R-I-C, Eric.
You also testified that her lips were black, had a deeper voice. Yes?
Yes.
But you also could make out what she was saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Court's indulgence, just a moment. I think I called you the wrong name a minute ago.
You did.
What I meant to say is that actually that us included Cole Haley,
Yes, ma'am, the fire chief. Yes.
fire chief.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moore.
Redirect.
Jody, when you first asked her, did you get an immediate response, or did you have to ask her multiple times about what was going on?
I got a immediate response. I mean, she had to catch her breath. I mean, she was having problems breathing.
And she was having trouble breathing. Was she having trouble breathing at this point?
Yes.
And I believe, what did you mean when you said her sinus cavity was coming out?
I mean, she had her, sinus cavities were dangling out of her nose.
Nothing further, Your Honor. He may be excused.
Sir, you may be fined excused. That means that you can free to go or you can remain in the courtroom, your choice.
Thank you, sir.
Counsel approach, please.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good. We're going to stop for the day and put in a full day today, and we'll resume this trial again at 9 o'clock in the morning. Remember my admonition about not talking among yourselves and discussing this case. That's vitally important, and we just can't permit it. And as I told you earlier, you will be permitted to use your cell phones tonight on a limited basis to call home and check on your loved ones. You should have received an information sheet from Ms. Phelps about should an emergency arise at home, who they are to call. That way that we can always get you word if need be. But please remember, you're only going to use those cell phones tonight for a short period of time on a limited basis. And I'm sorry I have to be that strict, but I don't have any choice. I hope you understand. All right, is anything further from the state before we recess for the day?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I put you in charge with the bailiffs, and I will see you bright and early in the morning.